Run me win. Hello guys, I'm James, the Christian Take. What are you crying about? Yesterday I finished the entire 20 seasons of Law & Order. I did skip a couple. I don't watch trash. You know, I was gonna say something else. I don't watch trash. But, you know, but I pretty much started all the, it's pretty much episodes that would play in the play. By the way, I mean 400 something episodes. Some of them DVDs didn't work, by the way, but we'll do it. But I've seen so many other episodes. But anyways, I had a chance to watch so many of them, over 400 episodes, and of all the episodes, this wasn't my favorite episode. I'll do a video about it's not my favorite episode, one of my favorite episodes, the best one I think. I'll do a video about that later. But one of the things that stood out to me, they had so many cool, awesome quotes and phrases and things people said and, you know, did. But in Vino Veritas, which is involved Chevy Chase as a father, you know, who, you know, has this phrase in it. And the phrase is, "What are you crying about?" And the pretty much simply, Chevy Chase plays he's a great actor. I mean, he's awesome. He plays a racist person who teaches his child to be racist, and so the kid kills somebody out of pure racial hate, and then the mom's like, they're telling the mom, because the father's been booked already, you know, because they thought it was him, and now it's like, oh, what in the world, are they working together? So they're telling the mom about this, and the mom starts crying after the kid starts telling his worldview. And the kid says, "What are you crying about?" Because the woman is like crying because now her son is, you know, about to get arrested for this crime, a murder. And of course, when you go through the entire story and they look it up, the mom knows several instances where the child exhibited this hate and punched somebody, you know, in a racial hate manner. And it's like, he's about to get arrested. So it's like, but there's a history about this. And so the kid's like, "What are you crying about?" Because he believes what his father taught him. He picked up on his father's racial hatred. He believes is right. And he doesn't see a problem with what he did. And the mom's like, been privy to this the whole time. Let me just go ahead and finish this. So, the Bible says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it." Conversely, if you train up a child in the way they shouldn't go, boom, what are you crying about if they get arrested? I mean, if you teach, we'll start with racism. If you teach your child racism, and you know, you play, you wave your little flag and you talk about tradition and all sorts of junk like that, and you actually decide to teach your child racism, you know, if you use that flag as an excuse for racism, if you teach your child racism and then he grows up, graduates from college, becomes a doctor, and lets a racial slur come out of his mouth, and he gets fired from the administrative position in a hospital because of racism, what are you crying about if he tells you that now he's got to leave the city and he's lost his job and he's almost about to get his license removed out of that county because they're like, we don't want him practicing, you know, we don't need a racist doctor. Hatred. If you teach your child hatred for a particular group of people, or just hatred in general, hatred is bad. They just hate somebody, and you teach them to hate certain people and stuff like that, feuding. Well, what are you crying about if your child grows up and assaults somebody and punches them, and they go off and tell the police and the person gets arrested? And I'm like, oh no, what are you crying about? You taught the child this. Abuse. We're talking about, you know, physical abuse. If you train your child by physically or emotionally or sexually abusing them and stuff like this, and then they grow up, or they, you know, later on in life or whatever, 5 minutes from now, goes and abuses somebody else, what are you crying about if you get a call from the school that your kid just punched 3 people in the face because he's a bully or whatever? You taught him the abuse. You saw the abuse going on. You saw, like the lady, she saw the father. She knew the dad did the things. Whenever the kid did anything wrong, he just rewarded the child. You know, and then it's like, the kid thought it was all right. So if you see something going on, if you see abuse going on, and you know, dad's beating on mom, well, what are you crying about if your son starts beating on his wife when he gets married? I mean, the question is really surprising. And of course, anger. Here's another one. I mean, if you bawl out, people, and carry on like a foolish person, or you're in a house where someone does that, or they have an uncle that they visit all the time and he's always a mean person who flies off the handle, can't control his temper, well, what are you crying about if your kid flies off the handle and does something, destroys school property or something like that? You're allowing it to go on. The real thing is, if you allow it to go on, if you think about it from her perspective, she knew that this child had racial hatred, but she didn't do anything, bring it up to anybody that they need to stop it. So now why is she crying? Bad habits, alcoholism, drug use, all this stuff, illegal drug use, alcohol, all this trash, what are you crying about if you do cocaine in a place where it's not legal, and then you get shocked that your child gets arrested at school for having cocaine? What are you crying about? If you don't think it's a problem to let your kid have beer and they're underage, well, what are you crying about if they go get some beer and drink underage at a party? What are you crying about? In Alabama, I don't know if this is for other states, but if you're inside of a house or inside of a vehicle and they find illegal drugs or alcohol inside the party or whatever, they can get everybody, arrest everybody until they find out whose it is. So don't be crying if something happens at a party, underage drinking, and everyone, we ain't no snitch, and your kid ends up, hey, come on. So you got bad habits or anything like that, smoking, whatever. Don't be smoking 20 packs a day if people actually did that, and cry if your kid, you find your kid smoking. So the thing is be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners. So it was I'd say the most impactful phrase, writing, quote, anything I saw the whole 400 plus episodes was, what are you crying about? Because guys, the kid did not really understand that what he was doing was wrong. The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart. If the child is trained, this is why it's quintessential that you get your wisdom from God, period. Get it from the Bible, period, because this child thought it was okay. And inside the home environment, he could act like that. He could do this, that, and the other. He'd hit somebody, he could get transferred to another school. But then he left the home environment. And after you leave the home environment and you start interacting with other people, then you really find out whether or not training is actually working. If it's appropriate or not. So his racism worked until he killed somebody. So that's it. Drinking might be funny and cool until, old dude is driving down the street, runs a red light, and the police find alcohol inside of his vehicle, and he's like 18. He's too young to drink. See? Hello? And stuff like that. So the thing was really, what are you crying for? It was such an impactful thing, but I just want to encourage you, guys, if you see something going wrong and you don't do anything to stop it. Moms, dads, there's spousal abuse, child abuse, whatever. People at work, if there's sexual abuse, if there's sexual abuse, whatever it's called, the workplace, if you got inappropriate activity, if you're inside of a military company, if you're at a school and you're a teacher and someone's, they running drugs through your school, they're running methamphetamines, meth through your schools or whatever, they're running, and you don't do anything about it. When all stuff breaks down, what are you crying about when they shut down the school and you don't have a job? What are you crying about, if everybody gets in trouble? What are you crying about, if your loved one goes to jail? What are you crying about if your child picks up that horrible behavior? So it sounds really interesting, but I really like that. So I love you. Thanks for joining me. Blessed day for living Lord King Jesus Christ. Live, move, be, like, comment, and subscribe.